together at 5 p.m. This is Monday, May 22nd, 2023. I want to point out there is pizza there available, and what we're starting with here at 5 o'clock is the Historic Preservation Commission. We have until 5:30 with you guys. And this is a work session, so we're just going to kind of chat, basically. Less formal than the meetings. We haven't had a work session for a very long time. I've never run one. So, then there's not much to it. What I'd like you guys to do, because maybe somebody doesn't know you, is could you just introduce yourselves to us, please?
Absolutely. I'm Tom Gilbrecht. I am chair of the HP Commission.
Marianne Benoit, one of the commissioners.
Art Lee Master.
Sue Ward.
Okay. And we're missing Donna Walker and Laura Erickson.
Ms. Walker is out of town, and Ms. Erickson had previously told us that she wasn't available to come. We'll say that.
That's okay.
So we do have our quorum.
You've got a quorum.
So we now are happy to say that we're 6, and Commissioner Ward is our vice chair.
Okay, well, thank you. So the whole point of today is to say hey and meet you and go through your, go through your priorities and discuss what you guys have been doing, I guess. So unless council has anything to say or administration, I'll just let you guys go ahead and talk about what you do.
Thank you so much.
Like
so we did take the opportunity to get together and collectively put together a report, which is really just based on the priorities that you set before us. I'd also like to say that Director Taylor has also been very helpful as well in helping us prepare these reports. So our first thing we just wanted to say, the meetings of the Historic Preservation Commission, we want to let you know that those are quarterly. There were times where we had very many for very many months, particularly we're working on the CLG walking tour and so on. But we're required to have 2 meetings per year. We actually have 4. We have 1 per quarter. And those were determined in our December 2022 meeting. So again, that satisfies and exceeds the HP requirement for our tasks and meetings twice a year. Our 2023 meetings are on the 2nd Thursday of the month. We just had one in January 12th. Most recently on May 12th. We'll have another meeting in August and another meeting in November. Each of our meetings are comprised by a work session followed by a meeting. That way we can actually get work done, and then any work that needs to be voted on, we can vote on at our meetings as well. We have actually created a simplified spreadsheet of our annual priorities. It was something that Vice Chair Ward started. We've been working on with Director Saylor, where we actually have taken just the priorities you gave us. We actually put it into a spreadsheet by month, and it happens to fall out by quarter. Very easy for us then to come up with our agendas. This is how we determine our quarterly meeting cadence and content. Again, you set the priorities as a council, and we define a template quarterly with meetings to match. And that eventually is going to turn into something that will be very easy to make reports as well too. We'll be able to just push a button and say, here's a report, facilitate things. Within our priorities was the annual certified local government grant report to the State Historic Preservation Office. We just completed that fully and sent it off to the State Historic Preservation Office. From a public outreach point, we're to coordinate efforts with planning and zoning regarding identification and protection of local historic and archaeological resources. I just want to point out that per what you had talked about previously in our priorities as well, why we were founded at Alaska Historic Preservation Act, policy of the state to preserve and protect the historic, prehistoric, and archaeological resources of Alaska from loss, desecration, and destruction, so that the scientific, historic, and cultural heritage embodied in these resources may pass undiminished to future generations. To this end, the legislature finds and declares that historic, prehistoric, and archaeological resources of the state are properly the subject of concerted and coordinated efforts exercised on behalf of general welfare of the public in order that these resources may be located, preserved, studied, exhibited, and evaluated. And that's from Article 1 of the Alaska Historic Preservation Act. I think from what we understand initially, when we were first chartered, is basically to say, planning and zoning has their plates full, they have a lot of things going on, and they may or may not have as much time as they'd like to dedicate to the historic preservation part and the economic development part of the HP work. So that's kind of where we were created and how we're hoping to continue working very hand in hand with P&Z. So within coordinating efforts with planning and zoning regarding identification and protection of local historic and archaeological resources, we have not yet met this year with planning and zoning. We still have a couple meetings yet. I'd like to meet with Chair Sullivan to discuss being on their joint priorities, because I believe that we're probably on their priorities as well too. And so we have had meetings with them in the past, and we'd very much like to do that together again. Stop me anything. Number 2 is enhancing the understanding of the economic benefits of heritage tourism. That's currently happening through the Facebook posts that are scheduled by Commissioner Benoit over here to my left, to your right, and the promotion of our walking tour, which I'm sure many of you are aware of, and we've had celebration of right in this very room. Now, we've been working since we did the walking tour. We've gotten together with the Chamber of Commerce, as well as the Seward Community Library and Museum, and there's thousands of maps that are positioned at multiple businesses and organizations. I just saw them back out at the military resort. They're in the hotels. They're kind of all over the place. And what's really cool is that Commissioner Benoit created a decal, and it was sponsored by, paid for the Rotary Club, which can now be scanned at both the library as well as the Chamber of Commerce. You just scan it and you can get all the walking tour information without having to grab a map. So that's great from a sustainability standpoint, and as well as just convenience for folks. And this will allow visitors to download the walking tour maps to their phones. This helps protect our environment while also saving money for the city of Seward for printing costs. Those maps are pretty expensive to print. They're nice kind of color maps. I will leave, of course, and it won't take me very long with the report, so if you want to ask Commissioner Benoit anything about the walking tour or how that works, it certainly could. The other cool thing is that the walking tour video is shown daily at the library before the movie at 2 o'clock p.m. So there's a promotional video. It promotes walking in our city and patronage to the museum and coffee shops, restaurants, and attractions. The tour's goal is to have visitors stay longer in town and appreciate our history, hence encouraging visitors to bring family and friends. This has been promoted to hotels and tour companies as well, and again, several HP commissioners who are also members of the Resurrection Bay Historical Society have also been volunteering at the library on Sundays so that it can be open to visitors. So even though this isn't specifically an HP task, you're finding that we're working hand in hand with, some point P&Z, working economic development, we're working with RBHS, we're working with Rotary, we're just trying to be very good partners. The movie is shown on this day. Commissioners promote walking and history tours and drive visits to the museum. We're also collaborating with Commissioner Benoit and the Seward Rotary Club, who's sponsoring building a series of audio walking tours based on walking tour signs at the local radio station. So that'll be step number 2, right, is recording some of that history into something that can be heard as well as seen. Commissioner Benoit initiated the idea with the radio station for a regular radio show called Seward's History, the Rest That Story. That'll feature Commissioners Benoit, Vice Chair Ward, and guests discussing interesting stories and additional history that we discovered when creating the walking tour beyond what you read on the sign. So it's kind of that rest of the story, right? This is also an opportunity to highlight the benefits of heritage tourism. So we're hoping that people will pick up that radio, and then also we can make recordings of it and so on. And those are certainly things that can be shared, say, on our website or whatever might be on the city's website. Again, just drawing people here to come look at that walking tour. We're also a partner with the Seward Rotary Club in developing an interpretive sign for Rotary Park that talks about the history and ecology of the area. We assisted with research, and the sign will help inspire interest in history while attracting visitors. Another task, to celebrate National Historic Preservation Month in May by proclamation. We're celebrating via proclamation the Commission approved at our last meeting. That proclamation is to be presented tonight, I believe. We will also promote this proclamation through the radio. So former HP Commissioner Wolfgang Kurtz will help us promote the local newspaper as well as social media posts, which are already in the works. Awarding this annual Seward Historic Preservation Award in May, we solicited nominations through posting to the public and received one outstanding nomination, which was selected at our last meeting. Seward residents Alan Tiffany Siller will receive this award for their work researching Seward cemetery history and placing identification on graves, names, date of birth, and dates of death. I believe I have that here somewhere. I can read that later. Maintaining the Seward Historic Preservation's online presence. There's 3 to 4 posts per month created by Commissioner Noel, which are scheduled at least 6 months in advance. And we add posts that are needed for events or on timely information. We did post those copies were sent as a laydown, I believe, as well for tonight. So you can see the planned Facebook posts, which are also presented. Any questions so far? I'll pause for a minute. Sewer and historic structures and sites. We have a task to provide research about local projects and recommendations about the effect on properties identified in the local historic preservation inventory. That inventory list is an ongoing historical document. The last major update is 2018. You would see copies of it in the 2017 historic preservation plan. You would see copies of it are also stored at the library as well as with the clerk. And they're also at the State Historic Preservation Office. This is considered properties that we define, as we defined years ago, as anything over 50 years old should be included in that list. We meet once a year to review the list and recommendations for updates. That list is maintained, as I said, by clerk's office, library directors. Commissioners have provided renovation funding ideas also. So when we talk about local history preservation inventory and some of the things we've done, we actually were contacted by the owner of Van Gelder in questions about how to be involved, and there's also where you could get potential funding sources to improve the inside and outside of the building. And so on, we met with their architect and gave them some ideas and some potential funding. They actually did approve, actually did approach the State Historic Preservation Office, and I believe got some funding, or at least got an application in for continued work to improve that building. Update, review, and submit the Sewer Historic we talked about. So Director Saylor is cross-referencing with the clerk's office to see if we've updated inventory from our last complete list in 2018 to make sure all of our lists are the same. As mentioned, this is an ongoing document that's going to be shared with the state along with our yearly CLG reporting we just turned in. We update some updates as we've gone along, so it's an always moving list because everything turns 50 years and then the next year 50 years and the next 50 years. Promoting and continuing to nominate structures and sites of local sewer local register. So there's a National Historic Register, there's a sewer local register. This is something we're going to work on later in the year. That's where you see some of the little brown plaques that are around town, little oval plaques. We're hoping to do some work on that in August to award some of those here in town. We have budget for that, and we're going to provide some plaques. Supporting the historic Coburn Park by assisting the planters and working towards restoring its historic character. So we discussed this at our May 11th meeting, and we contacted local garden clubs and Parks and Rec to determine what planting and maintenance can happen. We've had some success, which commissioners here can tell you about, with replanting historic lilacs, which have worked only with the larger transplants. It's kind of hard and hardy and it's been kind of cold, but we have been successful in having some take. We're also considering planting historical white roses from the Cable House in the summer or fall. So if anybody knows of any historic plants that are out there that have been there for a long time, we'd love to hear about it because we're trying to do some transplanting and so on and renew the character there. Some on the list is weather dependent and dependent on support from Parks and Rec for watering and maintenance. That's something we'd love to discuss. We know that I don't know if there's a tremendous amount of resources at Parks and Rec to help us, but literally in the past we've had to go over and water the plants and or not only do the planting but water and maintain. So dependent on what maybe city could offer us to support us, we'd really like to continue with our local park activities. Providing research, almost done. Regarding the preservation and use of the Jesse Lee home properties for park use, we are also tasked with. We will contact Community Development Director Jason Bickman to discuss ongoing plans. That is probably an opportunity to collaborate with planning and zoning as well. The HP Commission would like to be involved in any news regarding the ongoing project over at Jesse Lee home as it relates to the parkland, so we can assist with research and preservation input. This project is known to be of interest to the State Historic Office as well. And our interest really is in helping preserve history, not being polarizing or involved in any way, shape, or form with anything to do with politics. We just want to help if we can help research, if we can help provide input. Identifying the most endangered historic properties in Seward. We haven't had time to take that on in any great detail. That's one of the things that you have in both the state plan as well as the local plan. And this is an ongoing discussion. So we have discussed the merits of helping other organizations and individuals by creating a grant library, kind of what I talked about like with the Van Gelder, right? Because we have knowledge of how CLG grants work, we have knowledge of how some of the other grant work in town, like the Kenai Mountain Turning an Arm and some of those. We don't propose to take those on as a commission. That's a little bit of murky ground, but we could be maybe a repository to help people know how to apply for these grants and make some suggestions as to who might. Specifically at this point in time, we know St. Peter's Cathedral and both the Liberty View are probably two of the most endangered in this town that could use some help if they so wish. And so we might have some ideas around that. We'll try to galvanize some support around that. The last big piece is the Seward Historic Preservation Plan, which, as I mentioned, was last revised in 2017. We believe it's sufficiently up to date other than the continuing work that's mentioned in Chapter 8, which is the agenda for future action. Now, within that HP plan, we notice if we go through it, and I have a copy of it here, but if you were to go through that plan, you basically see that the reason we don't want to spend a lot of time redoing is we're already doing a lot of the things that are in there, and I think we have more work to do before we go redo that plan. That 2017 plan, I came into the commission just at the very end of that planning, and I can tell you that it was a tremendous amount of work, and it involved technical writers and hiring professionals and so on to put that to put that plan together. And we still have some work to do in that. We believe that we are following the plan and it's guiding what we're doing. Instead, we seek to obtain a CLG grant in the latter part of this year, which will be sometime around August, from what we understand, to help us write some local guidelines and recommendations for historic preservation as part of our charter. This will help owners of landmark properties renovate their properties, obtain possible funding sources, and gather an idea of sewer appropriate design. Now, here's a point of clarity. These will be guidelines rather than any restrictions trying to impose any undue hardship or any financial encumbrances on anybody, saying, hey, we're HP, we've read what other cities and towns do and so on. We want to have economic development, enrichment of our history, preservation, and so on. We'd like to provide some guidance, some guidelines, some resources, as opposed to trying to be overreaching in ways that is not our position. These will be guidelines rather than restrictions, again, not imposing undue hardship or financial encumbrances. They will also help with new construction that may wish to maintain Seward's historic character, which I have to say I've been pleased. I've seen a lot of new structures going up that actually look appropriate for our town, I think. And this is again defined in Section 8 of the 2017 plan. There is a copy of that on the website under the HB section. If you're interested in seeing the plan, it's also available at the state historic preservation site as well. So the plan is due to be updated normally every 5 years. Like I said, we're deferring that to continue spending time on developing the walking tour, which will do a lot of work, and making sure that that moves forward, as well as some of this potential guidelines that will be coming up, and all the other things that I mentioned. And there's one piece that was a little bit unclear in our thing you see in your packet, and that was to advance the historic business district, and we feel like we need some further discussion on that. We really haven't delved into that. So there were two districts that were established back in 1984. One was the historic district, and the other was the Jesse Lee. Yeah, so there were two districts or whatever that were created. We don't seek to create anything different at this point, but we were kind of curious because that actually was put in our priorities, and I didn't even realize it. But until I was going through preparing for this meeting with the team here, with the commissioners, but there's something about creating the historic or the business district, and that's not actually something that we have delved into this year. So if anyone has any comment on that or what you'd like to see us do on that, I'm just about done here. And then other commission tasks in generating ideas, setting priorities, and submitting application consideration for CLG. We talked about the next opportunity is in August. We do plan to find an editor to help us finalize those historic preservation guidelines so that we do them appropriately. We'll involve some local input, like from the writers group that Commissioner Master has told us about and so on, and make sure that Seward has its history, with the folks that we have here, the knowledge that we have, but we'll need some professional guidance next week we'll do with CLG. That was a lot of words. That's all I have. That's all we've got, just what we put together.
That's amazing. Before I get to other commissioners, Council members, do you have any questions or comments so far? Okay, I have a couple, but I'll wait. Do the rest of you want to have some input here before?
We put input.
That was your.
Yeah.
I'm just a reader. I'm just a reader.
Yeah, so I don't have anything to add. I don't know if you do, Mary Ann or Art.
I only have one thing to add, just because I was thinking somebody would ask me when we said that the decal and downloading these maps would help save the city money. I figured somebody was like, how much money are you talking about? I want to know that.
How much money are you talking about?
Is that what
Yeah.
Okay, so, let's see here, basically figured we need 100,000 maps per year to meet the demand based on what the Chamber of Commerce has said, which is basically 2 full truckloads of maps. Because we had almost had about delivered when we got all the maps that are currently at the library. So I talked to the Chamber of Commerce and said, okay, if we do this decal and the whole goal is to get people to go up with their phone and download this map instead of picking up a paper copy, how many people do you think of the 100,000 per year would actually do that and not take a paper copy? And they said probably from their information about 20 to 30%. So that's basically let's see, that is basically 20,000 to 30,000 maps. They could be saved, and based on the cost of about 10 cents a map, that's about $2,000 to $3,000 per year. So just think in 10 years, you might save $30,000. And it's not bad considering, I think, to buy that decal, we spent like $300. The value is probably more like $2,000 because we had people volunteer their time, and the sign designer also volunteered some time, so there was a little more value there. But over time, it really can make a difference in helping protect the environment and not having paper blowing around town and just wasting paper. So Rotary's goal for doing that was to save paper and protect the environment, but I think it helps in a lot of ways.
That's good. Councilmember Wells.
When you say decal, do you mean a QR code?
Yeah.
It's basically a sticker that's on the window right outside the library door and also right on the window.
Right.
The Chamber of Commerce, so it's like a decal. And it basically talks about the walking tour, and it has a picture of the map, but it also has a QR code.
So they can just, okay.
Yeah.
And each of the signs have a QR code, so you could hit any one of these signs and pull up, if you can, with your phone, if you have the app on your phone, you can pick up the entire walking tour from any sign, any of the 26 signs. They all have QR codes.
Yeah.
That's pretty. Go ahead.
So I can say that I switched over on some of my marketing to the QR codes, and the first year I thought it would be 20%, and it's almost 100 now. Yeah, because most folks like to scan the QR code and then they can just share it with everybody, as if they were sharing their pictures on social media. Now they're sharing that QR code, so that has been and I have the ability to track that our QR code, and so I can tell you that is going to help. Also, I wanted to say that I was happy to hear how you're changing the idea of the historical preservation instead of creating more guidelines instead of rules and regulations, because I think that we all want to see that, but being where we're at, you're right, it could be extremely expensive or cumbersome to enact an actual rule. So I was happy to hear that change this year. Thank you.
And the guidelines literally address things like, if you're going to put in a new window, most historic buildings, the windows are vertical. So if you want the historic look, you need a vertical window. To put in a horizontal window, that's a much more modern look. So that's what the guidelines cover.
I think it's great.
So that if you're looking for that historical look, then the guidelines are going to assist you. The other thing is there's grants available. The one thing I own a historic building as well, and so the one thing is that they're expensive. They are expensive, but they also you can apply for grants. We got some money for Zooties. Because they had some retaining wall problems and they had rot under the building, and we didn't want that, so, but there are grants available, so that even though that is a historic building, we would like to make the guidelines available and granting opportunities, because that's, they are expensive, I guarantee you, but there are grants out there
I think it's
to
great.
help.
Thank you.
Other comments, questions from council members? Okay, I just wanted to point out that 4 of your members are active members of the Resurrection Bay Historical Society, and I think that's a really wonderful advancement. In years past, that wasn't so much the case, and we worked together, and so I really appreciate the communications that we have, and encourage the rest of your members to join RBHS. Could we put on the record that Councilmember DeMoss arrived? Also, I just wanted to say, it's too bad, you know, my Uncle Sid took care of Hoban Park for years and years and years here, and of course he's passed away, and I don't think I have family members now that would remember what plants were there, but I wish I did. We might have some pictures. I'll have to look. As far as
I
historic.
think we'd like those, if you've got some
Yeah.
pictures,
Oh,
that
yeah.
would be nice. And we have some old photos, and we're trying to sort of recreate at least some of them, and we're looking for historic lilacs. So the lilacs that we attempted to plant, we actually took them from the Villain House. They are historic. They're not just ones we went to Bell's to buy.
I can talk to you about that.
Yeah,
I don't
and we're
wanna
looking
take our
for
time
some
now.
roses. That was the other thing, some white roses, and I did some research on that fungus.
Whether
but-
they're,
Yeah.
The historic photos we have showed those white roses and lilac, so that's what we're working from.
and I remember those actually, I think they're in there.
Right. And so, like I said, we're trying to look for historic plants, not just go to Bell's to buy.
I just
Right.
wanted to mention, you said a question was from Resurrection Bay Historical Society. Well, Resurrection Bay Historical Society was also a partner in pre-med decal up.
Yeah.
Save the Land. And Resurrection Day Historical Society is also a partner on Burberry Park sign. So we're doing all kinds of work together that can make a big difference, I think.
Yeah, it's very exciting stuff. Well, it looks like we're almost out of time. If anybody has a last thing to say? Yeah.
I didn't know if you were taking comments from the audience, but
We could.
I wanted to come and thank the Historic Preservation and Council. We will be working on a big grant downtown at the Brown and Hawkins buildings. We'll be completely repainting and doing repairs to the exterior of the building this summer. So if anybody wants to stop by and take a look at the project, the Historic Preservation has been a big supporter of this along the way with the owner, and there is a lot of grant money out there, just like the commissioners have told you guys, and it is expensive having old buildings, but there are a lot of opportunities, and the more that the city can participate in getting those correctly CLG grants, there's more money that property owners can get if you guys get on board with us. But without you guys, there's kind of like a halt of where the money will come. So I hope that in the future, council can really get behind these commissioners. They're working really hard and really try to pull through some of that money, because it's there. It's a pot that until we put our hands in, we're not getting any. So thank you.
On that note, we need to be informed of what you're after too. I mean, it goes both ways. We can't just say, okay, here, because we don't know what. So communication is the thing, and I'm really excited about the commission we have now here that very active and doing good things. So with that, it's almost 5:30, so thank you. And we will be in communication with you
Madam
about
Mayor, City Council, thank you so much. Yeah, we're 6 strong. We could use one more if anyone.
and that's the other thing. Yeah. Okay, and then as you guys depart from that general area, we could get Port and Commerce and you are next, right? To come forward. Yes, Port and Commerce, and we don't want
Can I
to,
ask Stephen a question really quick?
while they're transitioning. This
Yeah,
is
she
a work
said that.
session, it's a little less formal.
What'd you do here? I don't know.
Shoulder surgery?
So as soon as we get the commissioners up, or the Portland Commerce Commissioners up here, advisory board members, and I see we have 4, so we have a quorum.
Thank you.
And I'm going to call us back to order here, so we can move on. It's like herding cats today, but I like cats, so it's all right.
Are you posting Tony Fisher?
Every time.
Tony Fisher?
And there is pizza. So, Mr. Jaffa,
What'd you call it?
if you join us here, we're going to get started, so
yeah.
you don't lose any of your time, okay?
Well, I don't think I don't know what will fill the space up as well,
Oh,
or the time space up as well.
okay.
First shop outside city limits, PACAB chair, and I'll let the board introduce themselves. We have 4 members. Vice Chair Paquette.
Can we have it inside city?
Okay.
Tom did join us at our most recent work session, which was actually our last session of the year. And we are about to embark on our well-deserved hiatus. And I've been busy with a lot of other things. We didn't prepare anything particularly as Tanguay did. Certainly it was a valuable thing that he had presented to you. I gave the council our quarterly report just 2 meetings ago. Not a lot has changed since then. Our last work session, what did we talk about? We had, as you know, the ad hoc heat loop group answers to PACAP, and we did get a report from them. Daryl Schaefer-Meyer and myself presented to, at that point, Chair Paquette. And I don't know what you want to talk about with the heat loop project. It is going forward. We have a lot of support from the city. It's a very complicated, in my opinion, effort with the Department of Energy. I'm not enthralled with the whole grant process. It's not like private business. But it's important, and it is moving forward. We do have a lot of people that are interested in the heat loop. This is one of the things that the PACAB recognized was that there was a potential for a national and international attention to a project that's really as adventuresome as that one. It's similar in some regards, like other heat loop projects, but extracting heat from the tidal water, the flow of the tidal water is unique. And as a result, there's a lot of people who are interested in that. And when it proves out, and I think it will, it'll gain Seward a lot of attention. Overall, the PACAP board has, over the years, done our code mandated activities of reviewing the harbor fees and facilities and listening to user complaints or suggestions as to what things could be done. I don't want to keep beating the horse about the crane, but the crane was an example of something that user groups came to PACAP and said, we need a crane other than the one that's on the Seward fish stock or whatever company it is now. And, you know, that's moved forward and it's gained use and I think overall people with boats will come to Seward. That's part of the major thing for the Commerce Commission, so we look at that. I had asked board member Atwood to talk a little bit about the railroad, because the railroad, of course, is another big money generator. Everything that our board does is geared towards what will generate funds for Seward, including what's good in good and welfare. Making this a culturally interesting city is one that brings revenue. If you remember, and I don't talk about our big neighbor to the north, but Anchorage in the 80s was viewed as a cultural icon. And they put in the Tony Knowles Trail. It was a trail first, and then it became the Tony Knowles Trail. People were flocking to Anchorage. to work there. It was a desired place to live. Same thing is kind of true of Seward. What we have here is what people want. And we don't want to lose it, so we need to be forward-looking. And that's what we try to do. Dwayne, would you like to talk a little bit about the freight activity over the dock?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So we've had essentially through April a docking for every single day of the month, and that a lot of that has to do with normal terminal operations, fuel barges, and anchor tenants like Samson delivering great bulk cargo. But we've had a lot of other cargo as well. It's been a really good spring for us, and that has also brought substantial freight train activity. And for example, we're planning here in the next 10 days to get a pipe shipment in, which creates considerable work for Longshore, in addition to what they do for the cruise ship season, which I think most of you are aware we're planning for 90 cruise ships this summer, which is going to be a good season. And we're also looking at more frac sand coming, which of course goes north to the slope, and that involves additional train activity. And so things are going very well, and we are not engaging in a dock expansion project this season. I think everybody's aware of that. We're looking at beginning perhaps at the end of the 24 cruise season. And additionally, we had planned to begin the freight dock expansion project at the tail end of the cruise dock expansion project. So there's a lot of work ahead of us, but it's exciting stuff. And additionally, we may be looking at the energy dock, which the former coal dock, to see if there are ways that we might repurpose that facility. The coal handling equipment, of course, is quite old and has not been maintained. I've had a career at the railroad that goes back to 2017, and there hasn't been a coal ship during my tenure. Those shipments ceased in 2016. But anyway, just to say that we have a lot of plans and a lot of work ahead of us. And anyway, if anybody has any questions about any of those details, they can speak further.
How would you like our presentation? I think I'm going to ask each of the members here to just say something. And any time council has a question, it's a work session.
Mr. Atwood, I was asked by a council member for an update on the railroad, and so would you be willing to come in the next several months and do a presentation about what's going on out there for council? We have a 10-minute presentation slots.
Yeah, I would, and I know we're taking somewhat of a strategic pause right now. I could certainly present the most recent version of the planned cruise dock expansion.
I think we'd be
that we have on paper, and that would be informative, I think, for most folks. But yes,
I'll talk to you, or you could get a hold of Clerk Peck here, and he can
Indeed.
set you up. It's just a first come, first serve, but I don't know. Okay, thank you. Okay, Bruce.
And I think PACCAV recognizes how important the freight dock is to us. It's not just freight dock; it's passenger dock. It's also the structure that we all use for the Winter Carnival and other activities. The railroad has provided a tremendous support for cultural and community activities, and I think former Mayor Terry and Board Member Atwood both bring that same knowledge of what's going on with the railroad. But I've found over my career the railroad's very interested in dealing with the city of Seward. It's the Dale Lindsay terminal. It's not by accident.
That's true.
I'll ask our newest board member, Miller, and I'm going to put you on the spot just a little bit, Tom, and if you could say, and it'd be benefit, if you would say why you wanted to be on PACCAV. What do you think you could help the city with by being on PACCAV?
Honestly, I'm not sure. I had a few people reach out to me and tell me that, like, discussions that we've had and thoughts we've had in the past that have a lot of insight. I grew up here, I worked on the water, I worked on the harbor, I worked on the junior for Anderson's for a while. And, so I dealt with the shipyard, the coal dock, when there was coal ships in here, the cruise ships, all of it. And I thought I would join and lay back and watch for a while and see what I can do. And maybe I can't do anything.
No, you can't. And actually, if I might, Tom is actually an excellent applicant because he brings in that background and knowledge of the community that, this board has. I mean, most of us are well-grounded in the community and know the history to some degree, which sometimes is a problem, but generally it helps you build on the past so you can go to the future.
We had a question, Councilmember Barnwell.
This is for Mr. Atwood. When we were in June, they talked about possibly being sewer being a food security secondary port. Do you know anything more about that, or has there been an update on that?
So what I would say is that if we get our freight dock project completed, we will have the linear footage and width to serve a different type of vessel. And for the ships that currently do all of that food shipment into Anchorage, we could potentially be a backup port. And so that has been in the works for some time. So I guess that's what I would add.
Yeah. The other question on tagging on that is, do you have a rough percentage of how much your goods do they transport via rail or by the road? Like, how is that changing? How's that what kind of?
So it depends on the product. So if we're talking about sand shipment, for example, these are bags that come. They weigh 3,000 pounds each, and we had 14,000 of them on our dock, and we would have 1,000 bags shipped out at a time, all on rail. And so we had trains going all winter, even with the challenges we had with slides. So in that example, almost all of it goes via rail. But in all honesty, much of what comes and goes is rubber tire. I can't cite an exact percentage, but I would say the majority.
Councilmember Wells.
Yep. Two things. One, congratulations on that huge fish. Yeah, that I saw your company got this week. I wanted to see in person, so congratulations. That was a great fish. Second of all, and I know that I could ask Norm this and get the answer, but the harbor head fees, right, which are $3.50, the passenger head fees for the charter. When I started my charter service in 2007, of course that was forever and a day ago, but I was under the impression that the harbor head fees went towards the fish cleaning stations, and then once those were paid for, the harbor head fees would go away. Does PACCAB have anything to do with the harbor head fees at all?
That's a good question.
Only in reviewing what the harbor master brings to us.
Okay.
And we look at it in comparison to other similar situations. That's one of our big guidances in all of the rates that we set is how are we faring with other communities that have similar services. The particular rate that you're talking about, no, we haven't had a direct input in that. But you probably can.
Oh, I'm sure I could.
The manager can probably answer.
Absolutely. Yep. I was just curious if that was something that you guys.
Councilmember Wells, we wouldn't shy away from the discussion if there got to be an issue. If someone came up and said, I'm not being treated fairly, we'd certainly listen to that. But it's never come up to my knowledge.
Sure. Thank you.
I'll ask Vice Chair McCat, who is in a. Oh, I'm sorry.
I can wait.
Okay, Councilmember Barnwell, go ahead.
I've been dying to ask you. I actually talked to Mr. Joffer earlier today, but I really wonder if it's the right venue for the PACCAB, but after the failure of the HEA sale, the city has a lot of decisions to make, and for instance, we know that we need a lot of infrastructure for our electrical. But I really, and I should have a better handle of that, and I know that our electric department has that, but it'd be really nice for an entity maybe that can kind of do some of that research and come up with a long-range plan of what our needs are in terms of infrastructure, what our options are, and maybe propose some solutions, because I don't think the council has the capacity really to dive into that deep. And the electric department, I mean, you know, it may change. Things may change there, and it would be really nice to have a long-term plan as a city where we can work together on that. For instance, I was talking to Mr. Jaffa about micronuclears. I know that Nome's looking at it right now. Allison's putting in one this year. I'm not saying that we should do that. NOMA's not saying they're doing that, but they're researching it. And I think it's a conversation that we could all have. It's coming quickly, and it's you know, we have to make some tough decisions. So I just think that your entity might be a really good fit for that kind of project personally.
Councilman Barnwell, I would like to address that and then segue into the infrastructure, which is a very similar kind of thing. And if you remember, we talked about the infrastructure inclusion into the PACAP priority list, but one of the things that PACAP has looked at is alternative energy sources, and that would include, it is not just zero carbon, it's other things than what we're looking at now, and those would include, you know, solar, tidal, geothermal, mini nukes. I have actually talked to some very, very environmental groups and mentioned the word nukes, and not everyone understands where this mini nukes is, but it's we're more than willing to take a look at it. I do know quite a bit about it, and as a matter of fact, based on the discussion we had, I was sort of digging through books. I came across the wrong one, but you all know that Homer Homer Electric has a $200 million upgrade on their utility power line from Bradley Lake to Dave's Creek. It may not be an accident at the same time that there are a lot of people promoting geothermal energy. That power line upgrade would take a modern power line within a short distance across the inlet. There are a lot of other novel things that can be done. Shugak Electric is looking at hydroelectric power across the bay. They're doing a study on Godwin Creek, and I suspect they'll find that there's potential there. This is an exciting, I'm in the energy field, it's an exciting time if we take our head out of the sand and look at options. And what you mentioned earlier is one. And how we would do it, I don't know of any other group in town that would really be tasked with that mission, but we do have some really broad experience in our group, and we've had the opportunity to bring people in as speakers, and I do know people in the field and be more than happy to look at things in general or specific as council directs us. Now, along with that, our needs in town, and I wouldn't quite agree with your characterization of the failure of the sale. I don't want to get into that at this meeting, but 60% of the people said that, or almost 60% recognize there needs to be a change. Somehow or another, 60% recognize there needed to be a change. That may mean somehow a more efficient local organization. There are examples of that. There are other options, but putting in a mini nuke under our current electrical department is not feasible. There's just too much administration. You would wind up being a generator and selling power back through the intertie. That takes a big organization. But I'd ask Vice Chair Paquette to speak a little bit about some of the things we've looked at. The heat loop thing, we talked about sidewalk heating. That's kind of an infrastructure project. We've had Public Works talk to us about upgrading certain lines and the cost of new water lines, extension into communities, and we're not stepping on P&Z's territory at all. We're pretty careful to look at something that's not done by other organizations more properly attuned to building a subdivision. Linda, do you have contribution?
I would like to say thank you for having this commission, because I really think that this commission has the flexibility to take on some of these sort of out-of-the-box, not run-of-the-mill things, and look at them and study them and come back with recommendations. And I really appreciate that. Planning, without a city planner, because we don't have a city planner as such, figuring out how, I mean, maybe there's somebody with that title, I hope I didn't offend anybody, but there is somebody with that title, okay, I'm sorry. But that's a lot. This is a big city for how little we are, right? We have an awful lot of stuff. It's not like a little town in the Midwest where there's a couple of roads that run through. This is like, we've got railroad, we have a hospital, we have a port, we have cruise ships, we have a jail. I mean, it goes on and on, so it's huge. And I think having a commission like PACAP that allows us to look at the growth and to anticipate and identify places where there are issues. Like, we've played a big role, I think, in really honing in on the deserts that we have, the housing desert, the child care desert, you know. So that's sort of outside planning and zoning. It's outside historic preservation, and I think it's outside the city planner too. So that's what I meant. I don't mean to offend anybody. We've done a lot. We raised the harbor storage fees, and I think that has generated income for the city. We monitor the infrastructure and identify places where we need to be looking in the future for growth. The wastewater treatment facilities are those structures that we need to be looking and anticipating. These things, you know, growing a city, some of these things are going to take 20, 30 years. And so this board is a great commission to be able to be identifying these things and sort of looking at them, saying, hey, we need to be looking about this. I was honored that we were able to give feedback on the legislative priorities. That's, I think, something new that we haven't done in the past. And something else that I heard Historic Preservation doing that I think might be good for PACAP to do would be to have maybe a meeting with planning and zoning, a work session, to talk about like the growth that we've identified has to happen, so that we make sure that everybody's on the same page in terms of where we're going and how we're growing and what infrastructure needs attention. And this board has had a tumultuous history. If you look back, it's changed names, it's been disbanded, it's been brought back under a new name. And so I think the key to that, to keeping those fears calm, is communication. Opening up the channel between council and PACAP so that we understand and we know what do you want us to be working on. So we're not off in the weeds, maybe doing something that we're really not in favor of, and then comes back and people get upset. Yeah.
Councilmember.
A question, Linda. You just said that how the PACAP would like to meet with P&Z. That's similar to.
It just struck me.
Sure,
I can't speak for anybody else, but it just struck me when I heard Historic Preservation say that it might be something that we should talk about. I don't know.
Yeah, no, and I think it's a great idea. So my question would be, even though it just struck you, and if you're not prepared to answer, it's not a problem, but how often do you think that should happen, and what do you believe the benefit would be?
I think a minimum of once a year.
Okay.
Because we take a hiatus. I think we're the only board that takes a hiatus, and everybody else is here for all 12 months. So I think once a year, and I think the benefit would be just sort of a double checking, making sure that they're aware of the things that we're thinking need attention, and that we're aware of what they're working on, so that we're not sitting here thinking it's not being done when it is in fact being done.
I think that's great. Yep. I agree.
Councilmember Wells,
Yes.
we do have a plan to meet with P&Z with an overlay and the small Marine Center, which we tried to do a couple things and scheduling conflicts didn't make it work, but that is on the agenda. And as far as the 4th of July, which is something I've watched over the years, this is something we do all need to monitor very well. It's something that I have, not out of brilliance, just out of, I think, common sense. That success was our biggest problem. We filled up the space over there to the point where when people want to come to a community and they're told the door is closed or there's nothing available, it's not just them that backs up. It becomes infectious, and other people start thinking that there's a stagnation and that things starts to atrophy. So there is a plan afoot to find more space for more tenants. And the challenge will be to find the best use of that space. Finding one large Walmart may not be the best for the community. Finding a bunch of sale-making shops might be better. So those discussions would need to be thoroughly vetted. And if I might, this is the 2005 Sewer Comprehensive Plan updated in 2020, but it's got names on there like Margaret Branson, Willard Dunham, Bob Valdetta, Doreen Lorenz. These plans take a long time from creation to fruition. And there's no time like the present. I appreciate your support for PACAP and for the last restoring the priorities, which were, I think, inadvertently removed, but they do fall into the PACAP opportunity window. And again, as far as meeting with council, we'll keep up our quarterly meetings. We'll try to rotate it so that the same person's not always talking to you. Well, you can ask for a backup player. But, I personally don't think that any one person is bigger than the group that they're part of.
Right.
Appreciate that. Well, we've got only about 2 more minutes here for your, so council, do you have anything to ask or comment? Any, yes, Councilmember DeMoss.
Yeah, I would just comment that I really appreciate Councilmember Barnwell's comments regarding giving you guys some of the electric utility issue to kind of sink into a little bit. I think we're going to need some more eyes on that and a good plan. We've identified a lot of issues. We've identified that we're stuck with it. So, I like that idea, and I think that's something that we need to talk about, how we want to move forward with that.
Okay, anything else? Last word?
No, thank you. Keep doing what you're doing.
Well, my last word.
Okay,
Thank you.
Councilmember Wells.
Thank you.
We get the 2 of you together.
Yeah, we'll never get out of here.
Okay, thank you very much. And planning and zoning commissioners can kind of move up. Stretch for a moment.
225, 230.
How big was it?
That's what I heard, that they will give their numbers for what they think
break
they would have to have.
They're an advisory commission, so.
Now I'll pull it up right now. There you go. I thought it was like 250.
I guess you are.
Was it very nice?
Oh, that's right, I know, never mind.
Yeah. I like Bruce. 240.
Okay, if you guys could find a
84 inch.
chair, you can bring up some more chairs. We have the chair here, in the chair. And we need 4 commissioners here. Do we have 4? Oh, yeah, because she's a commissioner. Thank you. We could have more if there were. And it's 6 o'clock. Boy, run a tight ship here tonight. So what we have here now is Planning and Zoning Commission, and there's 4 of them. They have a quorum. And Chair Sullivan, do you want to introduce your members?
Absolutely.
That's how we get started.
Okay, I'm Chair Sullivan for the Claire Sullivan. Victoria Monaco, Hendrickson Monaco, Okay, okay. Vanessa Verahay, and Nathaniel Charbonneau.
Okay, thank you very much.
And of course, our community development
Right.
folks.
Thank you for pointing that out, too. Okay, you can go ahead and,
Okay, so I understand this being primarily a work session, it's more of a give and take, as I heard before, as opposed to a specific briefing, which I believe we did a few months ago. For the quarterly briefing, I think you had the information on
Right.
that. I want to acknowledge the Community Development Division or Department specifically for all their support throughout our planning and zoning efforts, because as you all know, the decisions that we make impact on the things that you have to move forward with. And as all of us are not completely planners, we only have one planner in the room, I think right now, Courtney, and Jason drives the train and all that, makes it very, very easy for us to get things done and get it to you, and hopefully in a timely fashion. So you approved our priorities in January of 2023 with your ordinance or your resolution of 2023-024. And it looks like what we have here, we are already accomplishing quite a bit of our short-term goals as far as addressing housing issues, and also specifically we did a heavy lift on the Muni land plan, which I think was pretty phenomenal in a lot of ways, and I think that is driving us in the correct direction. I really appreciate the fact that you approved our recommendations for commissioners' attendance and training, because if we don't get our stuff done, then you don't get yours done. And with that, I'd like to thank the community development folks for arranging to have some outstanding training for us online, which is huge because we have such crazy schedules. They'll probably never get all of us at one time, so it's like herding cats, so we'll do it online. And it's really, it's an incredible amount of stuff. I just want to give you some topics, if you bear with me just for a moment. The essential skills that we'll be getting as roles and responsibilities, managing and leading comprehensive plans, zoning and ordinances, finding of fact, equity in planning, ethics in decision-making, legal decision-making, and procedural requirements. That will help all of us, and I may just reach over my shoulder to ask Courtney if anybody, any of the council members could get on that as well, because with her membership, we get the training, I believe, for free or a nominal amount. So it's possible that maybe if any of the council members would be interested in that, it would make all of us a bit smarter in that regard.
Any council members that would like to look at that training, we can send you the exact training that we send all our commissioners.
I mean, more people educated in a certain area, it makes it better for everybody. Let's see, for our ongoing priorities, correction on this, that we are still continuing to work on the 2030 comprehensive plan. We introduced it initially, and we have some definitive ideas of what we're doing, and in the next few months we'll be working that more diligently. I think we introduced that at one of our meetings several months ago, and then we moved on from there, and then we'll continue to do that, because as Bruce had brought up earlier, there are certain things that need to be changed, in particular who's on the title. You know, people have long since been gone as far as, you know, whether it's the mayor or whether it's the council members, so just tidying up and getting that stuff pretty well squared away. We moved on for the long-term recommendations for update for Title 15. The topics that we have addressed, and I think we've either brought them to you already or you may have approved them, things along the lines of dwelling definitions, short-term and long-term lodging, certain restrictions, awnings. I don't know, is there anything else on this one? We looked at the Muni land plan inventory. That was a big lift, and it's going to be a regular review in September, and that will be a huge thing across the board. And I think it is that we have, as fast as this town is moving and developing, I think we have to have an ongoing review of that for what we need to have done. Okay, conference plan addressed that. Looking at current and future community needs to identify what wide range of strategies, including land use and zoning changes. As you see that we've been doing that, whether it's Hilltop subdivision along those lines, or things along the Dairy Hill area there, trying to get properties replatted as well as rezoned, so we can continue to do some sort of development, even in the downtown area with, on Fifth Avenue with John Weissel, with taking down the old video store and putting up, trying to get a new storefront area and some possible housing for that as well. The discussion with the PACAB and Historic Preservation, that is also on our priorities to meet with them at least annually for what their input is to us, that we can dovetail our planning from your direction and then bring everybody together to move forward and not have any major glitches. But yes, I think we have both of them, PACAB and the Historic Preservation Commission, to develop methods to preserve the downtown for historic preservation, and also with PACAB for the SMIC and the zoning and other overlays that we need to do. And I think that's just a brief summary at this point. Does the council have any questions for us?
Councilmember Wells.
Thank you. I was obviously happy to hear that you already have some meetings planned. Are you doing the meeting with PACAB before they go on hiatus or afterwards?
I believe it's afterwards.
Afterwards, okay. And do you have a date set up with the Historical Preservation?
Say again?
Do you have, sorry, a date set up to meet with the Historical Preservation?
No, we don't.
Okay.
No one has reached out yet.
Okay.
But
you're open for it?
We have it as our list of long-term priorities.
Good deal. Thank you.
Councilmember Barnwell.
Yeah, I'm really interested in the comprehensive and strategic plan, which I don't think we talked about either. My question to all of you guys is, why not jump into the comprehensive plan? The comprehensive plan, I think we've all decided should be kind of a live document, right?
Yes.
So why not just open that up as soon as possible and start tackling aspects of that comprehensive plan? And then I don't know how the strategic plan would fit into that, but it's obvious these plans we're moving in such a fluid environment anymore. We do have to jump into this conversation quicker rather than later, in my opinion. So have you guys talked about, like, how are you going to dive into this comprehensive plan, and where does this strategic plan fit into that?
The comprehensive plan and the executable portion of that is being the strategic plan. Jason has it on his whiteboard for our meeting. We've already looked at that and highlighted several of the items that need to be changed, but we've just had a few other things that trump that before us to get back to it. But yeah, we've all looked at that, because there's a lot of those things that are in the comprehensive plan right now are done. And we need to change that to either complete it and move new things in there that's going, because that comprehensive plan, I think, was updated in 2017, I believe, 2017. So there's significant things that have changed since that time, and so we need to make sure, and I concur, that needs to be almost a living document, because as each year as you turn the page, there's something new that's come down the pipe that we have to insert it somehow and integrate it into all the other activities that are going on.
Just to follow up on that, like, for obviously in the community input, I remember that 2017, I think it was this 2016 input from the community, right? Probably. I remember those meetings, and those were contracted out. Do you remember? I remember there was a facilitator for that. It was done really well in middle school.
Yeah, there was.
You had a facilitator?
Yeah.
I'll have to find out. You may have to find out who it was. I don't know. Do you recall who it was? That's a good idea, though.
Yeah.
They organize all the thoughts and put it together.
I think administration can probably find the history of that. I know there was.
It was conducted by PDC engineers.
Okay.
Finalized May 30th, 2017.
There you go.
And if I may add really briefly to that, Jason and I were actually working on the strategic plan pretty intensively right before we found out Jeanette was departing. Couple things. One, it would definitely be administration's recommendation to shorten down the time frame, because going from 2016 to a 2030 plan is a very, very, very long time. So we need to break it into like a 5-year time frame, and then start working on it 2 years before the expiration date, and then adopt the year prior, and then have, like Chair Sullivan said a second ago, the strategic plan has not been updated since 1999, and that needs to be basically come underneath the comprehensive plan as the operational document that executes the strategic plan.
Yeah, some simple, my experiences with feds and things like this, they do think in 5-year increments. You have a 5-year plan, and then, like you're saying, you have a year or so ahead of time that you update and validate that's in there and change the things and get rid of the things that don't. work. So I think that it's been proven it's sort of doable.
That sounds good.
Sorry.
Councilmember Brown.
I don't want to, you guys have done such a great job this year. I really think that a lot of really great changes have happened with the planning department this year, and we're setting a good precedent for the state, if not the nation, in a lot of regards. But I do think that because you guys get so busy with your more mundane things, that having that vision as for you guys and for the city, I just think it's critical, because we can't see the forest, or trees through the forest if we're not, whatever way that goes, you know, we're just so fixated on the trees that we really have to look at the bigger picture to figure out where we want to be in 10 years, obviously with a plan like that, but.
Well, hence the name planning versus day-to-day
Right.
things. Anybody else?
They're done commenting. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay, we hear from the other commissioners?
Yeah, I think we have a pretty good priorities list, and I appreciate you guys' input and direction. With all of that, we've been sharpening away on it, and I really look forward to just keep working on whatever you guys think is important. Let us know, we'll move it up the list. I just want to get work done, so whatever you guys think we can work on, pass it down, and we'll knock it out.
Yay. That sounds good.
That's the best thing I've heard all week.
Yeah, I know, I love it.
Yeah, we've been doing good work, and I think there's a lot of exciting, like looking at the cemetery plan coming up, lots of stuff we've done there, so, yeah, trucking along, and obviously the big plan, and that's looking good, so, yeah.
I agree. And everybody's pretty much been at all of our sessions. Yeah, we've been having a good turnout, so it's good to get everyone together and just get things knocked out.
You folks meet during the summer, so. Councilmember DeMoss.
I just wanted to say that I appreciate the attendance and just kind of hashing that out. I think that's really good. And then secondly, I went through the short-term lodging process online for the first time, and I just really appreciate all the work that you guys did on that. And I thought the process went really smoothly, all the way from just starting on the application process. Having it all electronic was huge compared to previous years where we just got like this huge packet in the mail and had to like draw diagrams on graph paper and stuff. And so it's just like so much more seamless, and all the way to the inspection, it was really smooth. So I just wanted to let you guys know how that went, and I appreciate all the work that went into that.
Other council comments? Anything else from P&Z?
I just want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to discuss with you, because I find that when we have an opportunity to have work sessions versus the more formalized things, it gets muddied down in procedure, I think, at times, which gets a little tedious. And, you know, you can't get around it. But having an opportunity just to talk to people just on a, basically almost a one-on-one basis, then we know what azimuth you guys are going on, and then we can execute what you need to have done and go from there. So I like the other two.
You guys have certainly been doing a lot of work, and there's a lot more to be done, you know, especially with the comprehensive plan. I like the fact that you're getting the training. I was on P&Z for about, what, a year and a half, almost two, before I began Borough Assembly stuff, and I'm not sure we had any training. I think I just went into it cold, and there we were, you know. I mean, as far as what you're talking about, specific items. So this is really good. It's going to go a long ways to building a very competent commission, I think.
It takes some time to digest a lot of this, and it's challenging across the board. Yeah.
Right. So, anything else for the good of the order? Councilmember Calhoun.
Not to, sometimes I don't say much with the Planning and Zoning Commission because I don't want it to seem that there's favoritism involved, but they do have the best looking chair. Without a doubt. So, but no, I think they've been doing a really good job. I think I think that all the commissions and boards are doing a really good job. I think Planning and Zoning has the most difficult job by far. Not to discount any of the other ones, but, you know, they're working hard, they're doing a good job, and they've got some dedication, and the backup that the community development gives them is always a good thing. So I just think we're fortunate to have in all the commissions and boards what we have, and I'll just leave it there.
A little prejudice, that's okay. Well, you know, tonight showed what we do have with all three, and I really appreciate this. And we need to continue the dialogue. It's like if there's, you know, we just need to talk back and forth with you guys too. And we have our meetings. So is there anything else? We can adjourn this work session early. Is there public that wanted to speak? I didn't see a whole lot of hands raised.
I would say that
Oh, no.
planning and zoning
No,
has
just
the most difficult job. You're absolutely right, Councilmember Calhoun. Their recommendations have almost the force of law, unlike any of the other groups.
Thank you. Administration, do you have anything to say about that?
I don't have anything.
Just sort of stalling to see if anybody has any comments? Okay, if we're all in agreement, I'll adjourn the work session then at 6:16. And for the public, we will